Alright guys, I know it's crazy out there. Our IQ points are dropping by the hour, maybe by the minute, and things in Washington have gone haywire again. In fact, nothing will ever be the same anymore. We have to talk about US allies pushing back on Trump's demands. We also have to cover the government shutdown and why this has doomed the dollar. Now, if trust in the US was 5 out of 10, it's probably at a 3 or even at a 2 at the most after this stunt. But let's start with the chip war because things are going off the rails. The US has been doing everything they can to prevent China from getting the latest AI chips. Now, the grand plan now is to shift global semiconductor production to the US. Lutnick is now demanding Taiwan to play ball and shift 50% of all chip production to American soil. We have really gone off the deep end here.
95% of our chips are made 9,000 miles away. That doesn't sound good. And by the way, it's 80 miles from mainland China. If you have 95%, how am I going to get it to protect you? You're going to put it on a plane? You're going to put it on a boat? We need enough production. So the idea that I pitched them was, let's get to 50-50. But if we have half, we have the capacity to do what we need to do if we need to do it. So that's our thinking, and that has been the conversation we've had with Taiwan, that you have to understand it's vital for you to have us produce 50%.
So the demand has been thrown to Taiwan. Lutnick threw a ton of spaghetti on the wall, hoping that something would stick. It's the good old "we will protect you from China" spiel. Except it doesn't really make sense. If Taiwan shifts all their production to the United States, then the factories become American except in name. Lutnick will be protecting his own factories in the US. Well, that's a problem. Taiwan is not agreeing to Lutnick's demand. They will not be making 50% of their chips in the US, and this throws a big wrench into Trump's dream of the US being some semiconductor hub of the world. It's not gonna happen. And the remark came from Taiwan's vice premier, so there will be no commitment to this crazy plan. If Taiwan reshores half of their production, it opens up a whole can of worms. Now, apart from defense, the transfer of technology is also another problem. Will the US claim the tech for their own? Furthermore, making chips in the US is not cheap, it's downright expensive. Can TSMC make the same amount of revenue or profit making chips in the US? Plus, whatever production made in the Arizona desert can't be exported out. Prices won't be competitive, and we can be sure the US will place some sort of restriction on them. Now, even TSMC's founder Morris Chang calls it an expensive exercise in fertility. Labor costs in the US are just too high. Making chips domestically in the US could cost 50% higher than in Taiwan. Work culture differences is also a serious problem. US workers are not as efficient as Taiwanese labor. I'm sure you've read a ton of reports surrounding this, but perhaps the biggest problem is the lack of US supply chains. There is a lack of critical inputs from high purity chemicals to rare earth metals, and who controls these product supplies? It's China. So if Taiwan shifts their production all the way to the US, Beijing can always squeeze Taipei and Washington in one fell swoop. They could cut away rare earth supplies to the US while maintaining shipments to Taiwan, and it's easy to choose where you're going to manufacture after that. Meanwhile, China has enormous leverage over Taiwan in terms of revenue as well. While it's true that TSMC sells a lot of chips to the US, their biggest customers are still centered in Asia. The biggest buyer of Taiwanese chip exports is China, and if we combine Hong Kong's imports with the mainland, Chinese buyers bought nearly $90 billion worth. China buys these chips directly from Taiwan because it's near, they can technically control the supply chain, and it's affordable. Now envision what will happen if Taiwan shifts 50% of their chip production all the way to the States. China will be pissed off. There will be two big questions hovering around. How much more will the chips cost to buy our supply from the US? And will Trump, or whoever the president is, suddenly restrict chip supplies to our industries, restrict chip supplies to our AI companies? Furthermore, the US could figure out China's buying patterns and the type of chips being made. So you can see one big chain of vulnerability that Beijing wouldn't really like. There will be big pushback from the Chinese government. So as the trade war continues, there are exciting opportunities to invest and ride asset prices up. Chaos is the ladder, and it's time we climb it towards better wealth building. Now the US is spending more, China is spending more, and monetary debasement is just getting worse. In such an environment, identifying the right assets or sectors to invest in can be challenging. That's where tools like Moomoo AI can help. Now, I attended their Moo Fest this year, and this is a key highlight of the festival. Moomoo AI allows you to ask, analyze, and act all under 60 seconds. You get real-time insights using real-world information to help you stay multiple steps ahead. Whether it's company earnings, big geopolitical events, or the consequences of Trump's tariffs, Moomoo AI helps you to make sense of fast-changing market conditions. Now, I asked Moomoo AI if NVDA stock is still worth exploring and dive deeper into their financial performance. It's information like that which allows me to invest smarter and connect the dots. Moomoo SG is Singapore's #1 investment app and the first and only online broker for digital assets in Singapore. So whether you're pro or newbie, it's time to try Moomoo AI by downloading the app today. And it gets better. Get up to $1,120 in rewards, including an exclusive $20 NVIDIA stock when you deposit $100 and perform a $100 minimum buy trade. Terms and conditions apply. So follow the steps below and enter my code SEANFOO1 to redeem your free stocks. So don't wait and start investing with Moomoo today. Now, TSMC is already under enormous pressure in their China business from the US. Trump has revoked TSMC's validated end user status for their facility in Nanjing, China. That means future shipments of US chipmaking gear to the plant will need individual approval, and that's a bottleneck that could get closed at any point, especially if US-China relations devolve. So one can imagine how much this move will anger China. This essentially threatens Chinese tech and industrial security as well. It raises costs and could trigger potential shortages. US policy is now influencing how business is being done in China. It's simply unheard of. There's a reason why the central government is banning chips from NVIDIA. They are trying to force Chinese chipmakers to the finish line and getting Chinese giants like Tencent, Alibaba to funnel demand there. The game plan is to make the Chinese ecosystem self-sufficient. Years down the line, Beijing wants chips to be developed and made within the mainland itself. Huawei is moving to double their AI chip output in 2026. Their current flagship product, the 910C chip, will hit 600,000 units in production next year. US export controls are just not working. The 910D, Huawei's next generation chip to challenge NVIDIA, will also be released in 2026. They will be making 100,000 units of the chip next year. The US just can't seem to understand this. If you move Taiwanese production or even Korean factories to the US, it's not a magic solution. It won't cripple China, the move will just piss them off even further. In fact, you'll be hurting your own economy instead. The cost of making chips will rise when US supply chains aren't fleshed out yet. All the billions and trillions spent will be wasted just to reshore production. Meanwhile, China is going to keep innovating with an abundance of inputs and cheap power. They will bridge the gap sooner or later, guys, probably much sooner if Latnik plans goes through. And when it comes to AI models and chatbots, China is closing the gap faster than ever before. In 2024, it wasn't even close. The US was over 100 points ahead in the language model systems arena. But China's DeepSeek changed everything. The US is only 23 points ahead in February, and today, the gap is probably even smaller. Now imagine what will happen if the US attempts to move all production to American soil. AI training and building those data centers will be incredibly expensive. It's like running a marathon with a weighted vest. It's not going to end well. Supply chains are everything. You cannot win a tariff war or revert to mercantilist policies without affordable inputs. It's not even about cheap labor anymore. It's all about industrial policies. Because you can always leapfrog any labor problem and progress directly towards robots like what China is doing. Trump is putting the cart before the horse. Now, this chart shows us how important supply chains are. During the pandemic, both Chinese and US manufacturing collapsed. China dropped by 14% and the US plunged by 17%. However, the US languished and kept losing production power year after year. Meanwhile, China's industrial growth went from 10% to 20% to over 30% within a span of 5 years. And this is why Trump is desperate to bring manufacturing home. However, the tariff war is done under a very poor backdrop. It's like hitting the gym while eating junk food all day. It just won't work. But let's talk about the US government shutdown now. The Kabuki Theatre show is back on schedule, back on prime time. But this time, it could get much worse than before. The immediate pain will be felt by the furloughed workers. Now that is sad. Almost half of US defense workers, for example, will be on a leave of absence. The problem is Trump's shock and awe that is coming next. Trump is now planning to fire a ton of federal workers this week. According to Levitt, this could happen imminently within a matter of days, and boy does it get worse. The administration has cut more than $25 billion in funding for infrastructure and energy projects, and this is happening mostly in democratic states. This is some next level chaos going on. The US economy is supposed to be stable. That's why the world buys dollars, treasury bonds, and American stocks. But since the Biden administration, things have gone off the rails, and in 2025, Trump has sent the US spiraling into the twilight zone. Now, I'm not a fan of big government, but when you cut government jobs during a trade war, when industries are collapsing, what do you think is going to happen? You are literally crushing consumer demand in an economy that needs people to spend, spend, and spend. Private sector payrolls in September collapsed by 32,000 jobs, and this follows a 3,000 decline a month earlier in August. The moment the tariff war started, US payrolls started to plunge. This isn't a coincidence. There is a legit reason why private job growth is crashing. People's spending power is dropping. At the same time, US companies can't expand overseas without facing big tariffs back home. We are witnessing rebounding inflation and shrinking job growth. This is not a recipe for success. Sooner or later, this will catch up with the economy at large. Sounds like stagflation to me. And when countries see the US economy in chaos, they move away from dollar assets. The dollar's future is getting doomed. It's one big mess, and the government shutdown is only going to make things worse. Now, every time a shutdown happens, the dollar starts to drop. During the 2018 shutdown, the dollar fell over 2% over the entire period. And that was during Trump's first term, and now it's happening again. The problem with a falling dollar is how it signals to foreign investors to run away. It's a big reason why gold nearly smashed through $3,900 yesterday. A weaker dollar tells everyone to run towards real assets. Besson is facing an impossible situation now. Let's recall, he wants to maintain a strong enough dollar to attract money and capital. But how is that possible when Washington is in shutdown chaos? A collapsing dollar opens a ton of questions. Are dollar assets safe to hold anymore? And is the US economy, which is so hyper-financialized, in trouble? And this goes against Besson's own promise to the world.
America deserves a golden age economy. America is the Schelling point of global finance. We have the world's reserve currency and the deepest and most liquid capital markets and the strongest property rights. For these reasons, the United States is the premier destination for international capital, and the administration's goal is to make it even more appealing for investors like you.
Yes, Mr. Besson, the dollar is the reserve currency, but the US doesn't automatically deserve a golden age economy. You have to work for it. But we are getting economic threats, global tariffs, and now a government shutdown. Trust and confidence is getting eroded, it's getting clobbered almost on a daily basis. Even the IMF admits the reserve currency is in trouble. The dollar share of global reserves has dropped to an all-time low since 1995. We are now at 56.3% as the value of the dollar crashes. Dollar assets are losing value while other central bank assets like gold, they are increasing in value. Now, how bad this will get depends on the tariff war and the level of chaos in Washington. Now, the shutdown looks great for Trump trying to cut away government jobs, but there will be big effects to the US economy and the dollar. Then we'll see the dollar's market share go below 50% or 40% in the years to come. So everything in this game is connected, and no matter where I turn, it seems that Trump has lost the plot. Everything going on today just doesn't make sense. We are deep in the danger zone. But let me know what you think. Will more chip companies push back against Lutnick? And will the shutdown crush the dollar even further? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.